Please join me in welcoming Robert Law.
Thank you very much, Gabby, and a warm welcome to everyone in the room with us today and to all of you joining us online. Very pleased to have you here for the launch of this report, which we're very proud of at AsiaLink Business, and we're very pleased to have support from the foundation to support this work. As Lee mentioned, the purpose of this report was really to put a spotlight on the experience of small and medium Australian businesses engaged with China. It's very deliberately focused on consumer-facing sectors. So in particular, fashion, wellness, supplements, and food products. And what we have done in pulling together this report is we've spoken to 11 small and medium enterprises, and we've drawn on their insights. And as you look through the report, what you will see is that we've lifted lots of quotes from our interviews with them because we really wanted to give a voice to those small and medium businesses and an opportunity to share their knowledge, their experience with all of you and the broader business community. We've complemented those interviews with the SMEs, with interviews with some specialists in marketing, e-commerce, and indeed we've drawn on our own in-house expertise on China to develop some takeaways, which we hope will inform businesses who are engaged with the China market or who are thinking about entering China. And I say the last part very deliberately, businesses that are thinking about entering China, because we can't shy away from the fact that the last few years doing business with China has been incredibly challenging. There's been the political backdrop, and you would all know very well the challenges that we have seen in the political relationship with China. There's been the impact of COVID and all the challenges that has presented, and then the supply chain implications that come out of that. And indeed, we've seen China's focus and its priorities shifting as well. The recent Chinese Party Congress has confirmed and really emphasized that the government is starting to focus more on domestic market and domestic consumption. So with all these things in front of us and all the experience that businesses have gone through, I think it's very understandable to ask the question, is there still opportunity in China? We think the answer to that is yes. It's hard to ignore the fact that by 2030, there will be 400 million upper middle and upper class families seeking to consume premium and foreign goods and services. So the opportunity is there. The challenge is for each business to then weigh up that risk and reward and decide whether or not the Chinese market is for them. And if so, how are they going to go about navigating that market? And when we talk about navigating the Chinese market, one of the challenges is that many of us, most of us, probably have not had the opportunity to visit China in the last few years. But what we want to remind people of is that China is an incredibly dynamic, fast-paced, and rapidly evolving consumer market. I would argue it's the most dynamic consumer market in the world. So to compete and succeed in that market, we think businesses need a few things as a minimum, as a starting point. They certainly need a clearly differentiated and ideally personalized product offering. And they need a highly compelling brand story. But it's not just enough to have these two things. Because the market does change so rapidly, it's really important that businesses continue to evolve both their offerings and the brand story and the marketing that goes with it. Part of the challenge that we identified speaking to businesses as we were developing this report was, how do you keep pace with those changes when it's been incredibly hard to even visit the market in the last few years? And there's some really great creative ways coming through that businesses have used to keep up with the pace of change. They've drawn on insights from their partners, from their distributors in the market. They've drawn from their staff that they might have employed, and they've gone and sought insights from government as well, from federal government agencies like Austrade, from state government agencies as well, indeed organisations like Global Victoria and Investment New South Wales. There's a range of information sources out there, and what we saw in terms of SMEs that were succeeding in the market, they were really drawing from all the available sources. One of the key things that came through in our discussions with SMEs was around partnering for success. And many Australian businesses that enter the market in China do that through a distributor relationship. But what seems to be changing is the nature of those relationships. And increasingly, we are seeing stories of Australian businesses that are seeking different types of relationships with their distributors. The challenges presented by COVID and supply chain interruptions have really highlighted that some relationships, while they may have been sharing the upside, there wasn't necessarily good sharing of downside risk. So we're seeing that across these small and medium businesses, increasingly they're thinking about, how do we have a relationship with a partner who's fully invested here, who will share both the upside with us, but also the downside risk when we hit challenges? Another important thing that we're seeing in terms of these partner relationships is, gone are the days when businesses used to be across every available channel in the China market. We're seeing more deliberate choices in what channels businesses choose to go into, whether it's cross-border e-commerce, distributor relationships, Daigao channels, whatever it might be. We're seeing savvy small and medium businesses make very deliberate choices about the channels that they go into and the sequencing of those channels and how they bring them online over time. And that's because for many businesses, being in every channel was a race to the bottom in terms of pricing and in terms of brands. Increasingly, we're seeing businesses wanting to take back control of their pricing in the market and their brand positioning. And so that means making sure they identify a partner who's really clearly playing in the space where that business wants to be. We're also seeing some evolution in the e-commerce space. And this is obviously an area where AsiaLink Business has done a lot of work, and we do run our China Digital Economy Academy because we see opportunity there. And while medium and larger businesses have done well in the e-commerce space, we do hear from smaller business sometimes that the costs can be prohibitive. But what we are seeing is more offerings come to market from the major e-commerce platforms that are more affordable for smaller businesses who might just want to move a smaller volume of product into the market. So the ability is there increasingly for businesses that want to test the market, understand whether there is demand, and then really double down on their investment. A really strong point that came through when we spoke with all the SMEs was around the importance of having a really data-driven and creative marketing strategy to drive your sales in the market. The challenge is for small and medium businesses is that this can often be quite costly. Businesses will often look to an external branding and marketing agency, and that is a way that they will seek to build their profile and drive sales in a particular market and in a particular segment. But that can be cost prohibitive. So in speaking to some of the businesses here, what we saw was really interesting and creative ways coming through for them to do marketing in a way that was a bit more affordable and worked more for their business. So some of them had partners or employees on the ground in China that they would use to do their marketing. And some businesses even used Australian Chinese, and they employed them. Some even talked about university students and the opportunity there. So bringing people on who are really savvy, who are across all the digital marketing channels and trying to keep up with those fast-paced consumer trends and trying to roll out a marketing program that is both adaptive but also affordable. Key there at the end, you'll see on this slide, is this challenge around brand. And it used to be that being an Australian product was enough for you to succeed in the market. Now, increasingly, we see being Australian as table stakes. It's the minimum requirement, and you need to go well beyond that and be really creative about your brand. And indeed, you need to have a brand that aligns with consumers' values and interests. So getting creative about how you do your brand positioning is really important. And we'll hear in a minute from Phil and Catherine, I think, two businesses that have done a really great job of working on their brand in the market. So allow me just to conclude by leaving you with what we are somewhat ambitiously calling the new rules for doing business in China for small and medium companies. Hopefully they are very self-explanatory, but first off, every business needs to do a very sober and clear-eyed assessment of the risk and reward of the Chinese market for them, and indeed where China might sit in your international portfolio. Customize your offering, localize your offering, personalize your offering, make sure that it is responding to changing market dynamics. We talk about finding an invested partner, and we don't necessarily mean invested in a cash sense, although if you can do that, that's great. But really someone who's going to share both the upsides and the downsides with you, who can be your trusted partner, who can communicate regularly and be with you on the journey. Channel strategy is increasingly important, and being really deliberate around your channel strategy and what channels you choose to bring online and when, and the price positioning and your branding in those channels is a crucial part of your success. And lastly, get that creative, data-driven marketing, and creative in two ways: creative in the marketing itself, but also creative in how you choose to deliver it, particularly for small businesses that might not have a lot of resources to throw at external marketing expertise. So I'm happy to leave you with these highlights from the report. I do encourage you all to take a look at it and dig deeper, and you will see the experience of the small businesses that we've profiled coming through. And I'm also very pleased to tell you that some of the people who've actually been doing the work from a business sense will be sharing with us shortly.